Are you good, Megan?
Yep, you bet. Well, welcome everyone. And again, like Tara said, thank you for having us. We're really excited to tell you about our Grand Theatre and Indian Head Theatre and Community Arts, Inc. in Indian Head. So to start us off here, just a quick little definition of community development. The United Nations defines community development as a process where community members come together to take collective action and generate solutions to common problems. So we all know that in community development, most often the best solutions to problems come from the bottom up. They come from people who are working together and using the resources that they have available to them. And in 2014, our community theatre had a big problem. The roof was leaking, the foundation was crumbling. This building was built in 1904, and the current owners were ready to move on. But the theater holds such a unique piece of our history in Indian Head and holds so many stories from our past for so many people. Everyone in town has a connection to this place, whether it was their first movie or their first date or where they created something for the first time. So some really key members of our community came to.
First thing we did was upgrade the movie equipment to digital. We added surround sound speakers. We upgraded the movie screen. Yet we still had an incredibly leaky roof. Thankfully, there were community fundraisers happening even without us. So the elementary school kids raised over $2,000 just on Fun Fridays because they wanted to save their theater. But the real key to success was corporate sponsorship and in-kind contribution from our trades that allowed us to secure the building, as well as, of course, grants. The Sask Heritage Foundation was instrumental in helping us fund these grants. But if it wasn't for our corporate sponsors and donations to match those funds, RMIS was an angel donor. They not only contributed over $80,000 worth of professional engineering services, they contacted their suppliers to get materials donated and completely replace the flat roof for us at no charge. We continue.
So we just wanted to share a little bit about that because it really shows how we took a community development approach to saving the theater, and now it's home to doing additional community development pieces. So I'll just get the PowerPoint back up and pass it back to Megan here. Oh. There you go.
Perfect. Okay. So our board has undertaken a lot of development initiatives to decide what role we want to play in the community. So our vision here, we are a dynamic organization and space where arts and culture drive economic growth and foster an engaged community. And our mission is for the Indian Head Theatre and Community Arts, Inc. is a nonprofit organization that promotes and provides a venue for arts and culture programming while being stewards of heritage. So we are going to give you a couple of our most prominent examples of how we have tried to maintain that connection with the community and make sure that everyone in Indian Head and surrounding area really feels like this is their space. And one of the most successful fundraising campaigns that we have run so far to date is Chase the Ace. We were one of the first organizations in the province to run a campaign like this, and it created such a buzz in the community that it quickly grew to the point where we had around 45 volunteers per draw night in this building, and there was standing room only in the theater, and we have seats for 240, so it was pretty amazing. While it was a massive financial success for the Grand Theatre, the real success was in the connection that it created with the community. Everyone who was purchasing a ticket could see the direct benefit of their support resulting in repairs, and they felt connected and responsible for the Grand. Even if people weren't buying tickets, everyone in town and the surrounding area and even further reach knew what was happening at the theater, and they were cheering us on. From an economic development perspective, it was also a success for our little town. People were coming from over 100 kilometers away on draw nights, and they're eating in town, and they're coming in here to visit the theater. And like we said before, if we can get people in this building and tell our story, then we have a supporter for life. And Chase the Ace was a perfect way for us to do that. Other community partnerships. So as a board, we know how much this community has given to us, and we are always looking for ways that we can partner with our community groups and organizations to make sure that the Grand is also an active part of the community, and that we're fostering that local development through our activities. So this may be through hosting events in-house or participating in ones that are happening in town. We partner with our local museum to help them open a new exhibit that they were launching to celebrate our rich Métis heritage in the area. We partner with the town for their annual parade day with a float and ghost tours and popcorn for visitors in the theater. We've partnered with wonderful groups like Some Theater and Commonweal Arts to provide a free Art in the Park performance. Our local group, theater group, the Stage Left Players, have worked with us for many years to rehearse and perform in the space, while they're also using it as a home base for their stage equipment. And in return, they've made financial contributions and helped us to purchase stage and lighting upgrades and other equipment that benefits all shows that happen in the theater. Music Festival is another group that is welcome to the theater, where young music students share their talents. And these student events are particularly important to us to help encourage the arts at a young age, as well as provide a safe space and another opportunity for them to explore those options. And one of our most recent community partnerships was in support of an initiative to build a memorial park in Indian Head for Constable Shelby Patton, who was tragically killed in the line of duty in June of 2021. The theater hosted a comedy show free of charge for the organizing committee, and we managed the online ticket sales for them. And in turn, we collected the bar sales. The arrangement was tremendously beneficial to both groups, and for us at the theater, we were able to welcome a new group of visitors who may not have otherwise ever attended a show at the Grand. And that was really special. So we're always working to maintain that connection with the community and find ways to connect with new people or groups who can help us to further our mission.
So we've also always seen ourselves as a place to help address social isolation within the community. And we really are the only venue in the area for arts and culture. So if that is your thing, we are the place for that. And previously, before we took over, that programming didn't exist within the community. We really found this amped up during the pandemic, though. And one of the amazing programs that we had going on was Tune In Tuesdays. And this really was to focus on bringing a little joy into people's life and helping to address those social isolation pieces. And we started it with featuring local artists. And one of the benefits that came out of it that we weren't expecting is we had some of those local artists say the impact it had on them. We had one lady who said, you know, thank you for giving me a reason to get out of bed, for giving my life purpose. So that was really quite tremendously powerful, and we really weren't expecting that to be part of the outcome of having those Tune In Tuesdays. We also reached out to all of the seniors' homes and extended care homes within the region and let them know we were doing this so that they could tune in. And we had many letters of thank you from those places to say how much they looked forward to tuning in on Tuesdays and how it brought the residents and staff a great deal of joy and something to look forward to during that lockdown period. it was also quite interesting because we did focus the entertainment on that age group, and after featuring our local groups, we started having groups contact us to say, hey, we want to come and be part of your Tune In Tuesdays. We did have one performer, Len Gaditza, who I would say in our world almost went viral. Within 24 hours, there were, 5,000 views on our Facebook page, and it reached, I believe, 15 different countries. So that was pretty incredible for us. With the lockdown, of course, too, we were shut down. Our doors were closed. We couldn't host concerts and movies, but we still wanted people to remember us and to know that we were still here and that they could still continue to support us. So we hosted pandemic popcorn pop-ups. And the first one, we had no idea how it would go. So we had some volunteers in the community run it. I will admit I voluntold my children. So the picture in the top is my 3 children who volunteered for that first pandemic popcorn pop-up. And you'll see in the bottom picture, everybody very nicely socially distanced, waiting in line for their order. But another thing I want to point out about seeing the kids volunteering, that's also a big part of what we do, and a priority within the grant is being a family-friendly place to volunteer and helping to build that culture of volunteerism amongst the youth in our community. And obviously that's going to trickle out to the whole community as a whole as they grow up, or the communities that they've moved to as well. And of course, offering that arts and cultural programming. When there was no extracurricular happening at the school, we made sure to have those activities within the theater. We also did take-home kits and virtual classes and all sorts of things so that people could still be engaged and have something to look forward to. The theater also has the interesting ability to also be a great center for bringing education and awareness to social justice issues and TRC items. And in the past, we've been able to host many artists in residence programs. And this picture is from quite a few years ago. And we were so lucky to have Jolie work with us in the community and set up a bridging project between our high school and Nakota Oye, the school at Carry the Kettle, where they were able to do a lot of learning together and create some terrific relationships that actually grew into developing a whole committee called the Change Makers that really kickstarted a few students into activism. So we have a committee called the Change Makers. That's a group of non-Indigenous and Indigenous students, as well as adults, who are looking at ways to continue to educate and bring awareness to the community. And this just shows some pictures from this spring. So you'll see the ribbon installation that was done in June, as well as a mural that was recently done. So that's kind of wrapping up our presentation. I have shared Megan's and my contact on here if you want to ask us any questions directly after today, as well as our website. And of course, we welcome you to come and take part in any activities or programs that we have at the Grand Theatre. They are accessible and affordable, and we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tara Lee and Megan. It's really what a great example of a community using a historic building as a catalyst for community development in all of its senses. So if people have questions for Tara Lee, Megan, I hope you'll be able to leave them till the end of the hour, and we'll move on to our next presentation, which is about the work the city of Melfort has done to conserve and repurpose one of the city's most important landmark buildings, its historic post office. So our presenter is Gail Marie Anderson, curator of the Melfort and District Museum. Gail Marie.
Hi, Marvin. I'm not sure how to get my picture on here, but I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. And I'm going to talk about the historic Melfort Post Office. And the slides that I'm showing are picturesque, but they don't talk about or show all of the emotion behind them. There's a lot of feeling for this building. The community came together to preserve it, a lot of community spirit and a lot of pride. So this is how we came up to begin the preservation and restoration of the historic post office in Milford, our iconic community landmark. Heads built the building in 1913, and the main occupant was the post office, the federal post office. It also had an armory, the RCMP, etc. And for years, that was the use of it. We got our mail there daily. And Dr. Alfred Schmidtschad had the first postal box because he brought the sewer and water into Milford. So that was a historic even in itself. When the weather started having a problem with the edifice of the post office, particularly around the roofing and the windows or whatever, and we knew we had to do something. But when the post office itself left in 2004, they built a new building across the street. It was privately owned and deteriorated quickly because at some points it wasn't even open in the winter time, so there was no heating or whatever. But luckily we found a friend in Avitex Development. They had built the Stonegate property here in Milford, and they were very interested in preserving the heritage and culture of Milford. And so we struck a deal with them, and the city was able to buy the building finally. And when we could finally start our restorations. We did a lot of local fundraising. There was a lot of community spirit behind it. We got, for example, Affinity Credit Union, Scotiabank or whatever. We also applied for grants, and we got a provincial grant from Sask Heritage to start rehabilitating the windows, which was a major problem. We took off all the paint. The paint had been put on in 1996, and it was a pretty pink brick, but it didn't lend itself to the original structure. So we took that all off and used new bricks from a local family to put into place. And then we had some events to raise money, and we had events even in the post office itself. Local groups did some teas and some entertainment pieces, and we were able to get monies to restore the bathrooms and the kitchen, and they are both very lovely now. We also had an office in there for Main Street Milford, and then we started renting it out for photo shoots and for meetings and for cultural events. And it proved very positive in the community that we were using the historic post office building. We had a wonderful donor campaign, kind of like the Grand Theatre people were talking about. We had a phone campaign, and we raised a lot of monies locally. We produced a wonderful donor wall and presentation in the building itself. And then we got a $200,000 legacy grant from the federal government, and we were able to complete all of the exterior renovations, and we are still working on looking for monies for the interior renovations. I'm not sure where the slide is right now, but we have a lot of community events in the post office itself. Actually, right now, in the northern partition, the Milford gift shop is located there. It has been for several months. Because of COVID, they weren't allowed to operate in the hospital itself. And we are having events in there all the time. The Chamber of Commerce has had some meetings in there. In April, we will be hosting a high tea for Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee. And we will be having events in there on Canada Day and for Culture Days in September. So it's a very viable. We still need to redo the floor on the main part, but otherwise all of the main floor area has been completed. The basement has been cleaned out and is safe for use, but the second and third stories now need a lot of renovation to complete the full use of the building. But the building is very important to the community. We have a lot of pride in preserving it, and it defines the place where we live and work, that that the city has bought into preserving our heritage and is very much on board. We have a heritage committee. We have a park committee, which is the preservation and rehabilitation of the historic building itself. And so the landmark, it's the heartbeat of our cultural community, and we hope to always go forward with restorations and with events or whatever, and keep it for future generations. So I have no idea where we are with the slideshow, but that's the presentation.
Thanks, Gail Marie. Yes, I'm just at your final slide looking at the future opportunities for this landmark building.
Okay.
So thank you. We probably do have a couple of minutes at this point, or maybe we should just move on to the next presentation. And I'll just introduce our next presentation. If people want to save questions for Gail Marie for the end of the hour. Our last presentation excuse me. So our last presentation, it's about a project that has importance really for all of us who live in Saskatchewan and beyond. Several years ago, a very dedicated group of people started working to ensure the preservation and recognition of the Regina Indian Industrial School Cemetery. And to tell us about that work and its results, we have David Owens, member and past president of the Regina Indian Industrial School Commemorative Association. David, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Thank you, Marvin, for the land acknowledgement. I am coming to you from Treaty 4 in Regina. I will get my presentation started here. Okay. Can everybody see, or is it not coming up yet?
Not yet, David.
Okay. No, I can share that on. There we go. So as Marvin said, I'm with the Regina Indian Industrial School Commemorative Association. We've been around for just over a decade. We are a group that's come together to preserve the cemetery of the school and to bring information to everybody about this cemetery and the school that was here as well. The American author and historian Timothy B. Tyson mentioned or said, if there is to be reconciliation, first there must be truth. I believe this is the foundation of the TRC Commission. The Regina Indian Industrial School was in operation from 1891 to 1910. Through the Gradual Civilization Act and based on the Davin Report, it was there to civilize and assimilate Indigenous children, and through that separate schools to do that, to accomplish that objective. It was the third school established on the prairies following Quapel and the Battleford. It was operated not like most that were operated by the Catholic school church. This was operated by the Presbyterian Church of Canada. In 1911, it was changed, turned into the Regina Jail, and currently the school itself is the Paul Dojak Youth Center. You can see the center from the cemetery. Through archival information that our association has accumulated and researched through the Government of Canada, through Saskatchewan records, we have found that there is up to 40 children in this cemetery that we know of. This information was dated in 1921. Through 3 emerging working groups, there was a coming together that created the Regina Indian Industrial School Commemorative Association. There was a proposal by a group for permanent marking and memorial where the cemetery site exists. There was a group called the Rise Film Project that did movies and art projects to commemorate the children that were there. and then an actual cemetery commemoration working group. So just over a decade ago, those groups came together to create the association that we have now. The children that attended the school came from over 40 different First Nations, from Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and across the border into America. Lots of these groups. I mean, one of them, the Mistawasis, Nehewak, is north of Saskatoon, and so you can imagine how far they had to travel just to get to bring their children to the school, which they were forced to do. The slide you see now is early surveying that was done on the area. The rectangles and squares are existing disturbances under the ground of where children would be possibly buried. We do see through the engineering surveying that there are disturbances upon disturbances, meaning that it was quite possible that children were buried on top of other children. These surveying documents were generously donated by Stantec and WSP. Here we see another survey result. The red square marks the possible burials of 3 children of the headmaster at the time, McLeod. We do see 29 anomalies have been identified. We are looking at more surveying to be done. This slide shows you what has been done so far along Pinkie Road. The more surveying areas we're looking at would consist on the road and across the road from the cemetery where it is now. There is going to be talk of maybe a paving of that road, so that needs to be done before that any of that is started. We have received civic and provincial designation as a heritage property. This has helped us to protect the area from any excavation, any construction, and which was needed. Some disturbance of the ground has happened just south of the cemetery there, and having the provincial protection has been a huge bonus and to our efforts. The young child you see here is Thomas Moore Kiesick. He was student number 22 at the school. Thomas was used as a poster child to what the schools could do. He was enrolled in 1891 at the age of 8. His older sister and brother were both enrolled at the school. And this was used to promote how the schools could assimilate an Indigenous child to a more Eurocentric individual. Unfortunately, shortly after Thomas left school and returned home, he passed away from consumption, which we know now as tuberculosis. Our next steps with the association, like I mentioned, we want to do a third search on the, it would be the west side of Pinkie Road, which is, if you ever get a chance to get out to the cemetery, we are just north of Dudney on Pinkie Road. Very easy to find. We are looking at Canadian heritage status to just get more funding and also create a better protection for that area. In the area just to the east of the cemetery, we're hoping to create a reflection area and green space, a place that we can create more feasts and a prayer area for Indigenous people to come. And we talk about with the city about renaming the road, and we are looking at Kiesick as maybe one of the options for that. Our president right now is Sarah Longman. She was hoping to be here today, was not able to make it. And then, sorry, I've just lost my spot here. No, that was it for the presentation, I guess. I was brought in to fill this in as a past president, interim president, and I am very happy that to have this time to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for sharing the some of the important story of the school and the cemetery, and for the work and commitment your organization has had now for a decade or more. It's gratifying to see the cemetery protected and its story becoming known.
Really excited that was canceled.
So I think you still have your screen up, David, but if anyone now has any questions for David or either of our other presenters, we do have quite a bit of time remaining here, so I'm sure.
Well, Marvin's Brandt. I'll pop in here for a sec because I saw you and I discussed, we saw a question about the Melford Post Office and how they got the paint off the building. I know from speaking with Brett Lutz, who was involved with that project, that they tried a number of different things. And normally what you do is you try in an obscure area at the back of the building, various chemical processes to remove the paint. So if it goes horribly wrong, it's in an area that you generally can't see. And they settled on one, I believe it was a chemical process. I'm not sure exactly which one it was, that worked well in the back of the building. And then they applied it to the rest of the building. And it worked really well. They had one issue with one small area with some reason the bricks sort of turned brownish when it went on it, but it was very limited and it was very successful. So that's generally how they did it. You test it, you find out the different methods available, you test it on an area that's not so visible until you find the method that seems to work the best.
Can I ask on the Regina project, when they're finished identifying where the graves are, what are they going to do after that?
Oh, that's a great question. Right now, we have markers on the grave sites where we know that there's disturbances. We had a group come in and create just beautiful markers. If you have a second, I can show you those markers. 1 second. Oh. So right here is our website that we have. Please visit whenever you get a chance. It's riisca.ca. And in the gallery, you can see the grave marker donation we had. I believe it's failing me right now. There is a specific group that did this, a specific First Nation that had these made, and they are orange feathers on all the spots.
Thanks, David. Can you see another question in the chat there? Someone's asking about the correct spelling of Thomas's name.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna answer that right now. Thank you. So the spelling we got from the records, as to, I like the spelling that Diana shared here. Quite often the English translation to the original Nehewa is close, but it's obviously we are using what the records gave to us.
If anyone else has any questions for any of our guests, again, you can either type them in if you'd like, or if you'd rather ask a question directly, feel free to raise your hand.
Marvin, I have a question for the Regina Cemetery. My speaker, sorry, I came in, my speakers haven't been working very well. Did I hear that you suspect additional graves on the west side of Pinkie Road?
Our fear is that there could be, and that they are unprotected. It'll just be more on, we won't know until we have the survey done. We have asked that the city has made it that there will be nothing done on that side of the road until we know for sure.
Do you know when you hope to have that survey completed?
I believe it should be going in, it should be done this spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It's,
I'm asking because I'm currently staring at something that would apply.
oh, for sure. And if you want to contact us with any information you have, please do so. We have contact on that on the website. But yeah, it's very important that we find out as much as we can.
And Tara, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you might have said this in your presentation, and forgive me if I missed it, but are you planning any live programming for the theater now in the coming months?
Yes, absolutely. We have our Canna Kings actually performing this weekend on Saturday night. And we have a series of an additional 5 live music performances and a few workshops in the works, as well as some art shows.
Great. It's not that far from Regina for a person to get out to. I'll have to keep an eye on your calendar.
Yeah, and very reasonably priced.
Well, I must admit I haven't seen the theater since before the redevelopment happened. I had a tour through all the various nooks and crannies, but I'm sure I'd scarcely recognize it now with all the work you've done to it.
And we have many more plans. We just finished working with the architects to finalize some plans so that we will be more accessible physically and reduce some other barriers as well.
Really great project.
I'd like to answer a bit more on Linda's question there about the problem with laws on the property. I replied back that right now Battleford has a problem where the cemetery is located in the middle of farmers' land, and unfortunately the laws and requirements of Indigenous cemeteries don't happen to really fall in line with Canadian justice. So when it comes to trespassing on that land to visit the cemetery or do anything on the cemetery, there has to be what's the word I'm looking for? You have to get approval from the landowner. We had that problem here in Regina where the land was owned by another group out in Toronto, and through a land swap with the RCMP, we have acquired that land from them through a ceremony that you saw in the pictures there with the RCMP. So that land is in holding through us. We are just caretakers of that land, but yeah, it's complicated, and it's something different with every cemetery that we find.
Yes, unless they happen to be protected in some way through a heritage designation, they do
for sure
fall through the cracks in terms of protection, definitely.
Yes, Saskatchewan Heritage has been a huge help to us, especially at that point, to just make that land exchange.
So Linda, I believe, has her hand up. Did you want to ask a question?
I'm viewing this seminar from out of the province, so so we have an issue here with massive growth in Ontario. I'm in the Whitby, Ontario area, and so we have thousands of people coming in, and of course this heritage preservation is just starting. And where I live, there's an abandoned cemetery that is owned by the town. It's a dog's breakfast of weeds, and I do know the records. I know where they are, and I'm kind of wondering, do you have to basically get approval to find out who was buried there? And it's basically to start the process. Right now, it's a dog's breakfast. I've never seen anything looking so bad. There's been nothing done on the property ever. And this was 100 years ago. The school and cemetery were there. and all the important people were taken out and moved to a town cemetery site, and there's still over 100 people in the ground. So this is kind of why I'm concerned. Anyway, if you could address this, it would be fantastic. Thank you.
Linda, where in Ontario are you?
Whitby, Ontario,
Whitby.
but near Oshawa.
Yeah.
We're of course right on Lake Ontario.
For sure. Yeah, you know, with us, it came down to a lot of just research and looking into town records, looking into provincial records, going to the Government of Canada records, like online records. It's a lot of legwork. But if you start at the civic portion or even the rural, whatever you have there, that's the best place you can start, and just looking for why it was set up, if there's any names involved, what kind of reserve lands you have in that area, like who are the first people in that area. That's kind of your starting point. It took us, you know, quite a lot of years and a lot of volunteer work to get to where we are today.
Yeah, so yeah, and the original settlers here, a lot of them were Ojibwa. Of course, we're very close to Lake Ontario, so
for sure.
Basically, like I know we're looking at slightly different, bands and reserves. So, but anyway, there is some in this area too as well. So I'm viewing this with quite a bit of interest, because as this area grows, basically there has been very little done to reflect its history. So, although there is a site, there's a massive amount of, I guess you call it new residents. I'm in a community that's grown about 12 times in size in 30 years. Wow. So it's unbelievable. Anyway, I'll get off the call here and just listen like everybody else. Thank you.
Linda, I would also maybe talk to band offices in that area. They have their own records, and quite often the George Gordon First Nation in this area, the records they have been super helpful for other cemetery discoveries. So that's another place to check out.
That's great. Thank you.
Just another question about cemetery. I'm on the United Church Property Committee, and one of our issues with the closing churches is the cemetery and the maintenance of them. How are you going to maintain the graveyard? Who's going to pick up the costs associated with the mowing and keeping the weeds down and keeping the property up?
Yeah, it's a great question, Marie. We've actually got two groups that we're in partnership with through donation. One group is a building firm in Regina that comes and does the groundwork for us, taking down the weeds, keeping the grass low. And another group is a nonprofit group of former incarcerated Indigenous men and women that are looking for new trades, and they come in and they do work for us too. They're a great group. They have a vested interest in this, so that
so
has been
community maintenance at the end of it.
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
Peggy, I see you have a question.
Peggy Sargent here. I heard, I think that David had said they were looking at Canadian heritage status. Now, I'm assuming that he's talking about national heritage site, and I'm wondering what monies are now available through Parks Canada for that. I always understood that it was just purely that there was very little money available, essentially.
I could take a crack at answering that.
Thank you, Marvin.
Yeah, there has been off and on, and I'm not sure what the current status is, but a cost sharing grant program for nonprofit owned National Historic Sites. Now, whether there's still an open application for that right now, I couldn't say for sure, but there is that one stream for National Historic Sites. And it doesn't, you're correct, it doesn't have any regulatory course, the National Historic Sites designation, but it's honorific.
Thank you.
And I think it's more the honorific we are looking for. We have been very fortunate with donation and just donation for work that it's just more the protection than it is for any kind of monetary incentive.
So I noted in the chat, people were asking for websites for the projects. I believe David's posted the web address for the Regina Industrial School Commemorative Association. I know the Grand Theatre has a website. I'm not sure, Armory, whether you have a website, whether the town or the city rather has a website for the post office in particular or not. But if there is one, you might want to post it there. And there's a couple already. Very fast on the draw, you guys. So we're getting close to the end of the hour. Put out one more call for questions. Not seeing any, so that's the conclusion of today's webinar. Thank you very much to all of our presenters and to our guests as well. And there is one webinar left in the series on Thursday. There'll be an opportunity to learn more about the technology and applications of ground penetrating radar, as well as a presentation on an interesting public archaeology project that happened at Fort Carlton Provincial Park. And for anyone who's interested in a late registration, I will just post that information in the chat as well.
Thanks a lot, Marvin.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.